Welcome to EXP CultureCast, EXP Realty's official diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast. I'm your host, Cody Gilkeson, the visionary leader behind EXP's DEI strategy. I believe that we all have a story to tell, and that's where this show really shines. We are a vibrant tapestry of diverse backgrounds and experiences, and that's our superpower. In each episode, we'll sit down with thought leaders, industry experts, and change makers who are driving meaningful conversations and actions in the realms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. From personal stories of triumph to deep dives into systemic challenges, CultureCast is your compass in navigating the complex landscape of DEI. This is CultureCast, the bi-weekly podcast about what makes us us. Hey everybody, welcome. This is season 2, episode 2 of CultureCast. You guys saw the intro video. We love that new video still. I'm thrilled to have Emily Valenzuela with us here today. Hi Emily, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Honored to be here. That was a really great intro video, by the way.
Thank you. Big props to Morgan for the video.
Yes.
So Emily and I met at EXPCon just totally organically, just like many of the lovely people that I've met here. Just approached the booth and we got to talking. I think we talked a couple times actually.
Yeah.
But, so why don't you give people a little bit of your background?
So I am a Texas-based agent. I have a very diverse background. I have lived all over the U.S., from Baltimore, Maryland, all over the state of Texas, Las Vegas, Nevada, several times, California, where I was born, several more places, Georgia. I've lived all over the island of Guam, several different villages of Guam, and Palau, where I am from, which is right next to Guam. I've lived in a few different villages of Palau. Had a couple businesses out there, and then came back to the U.S. About 2018. I was taking care of my grandfather, and to find something to do. Accidented into real estate, was not what I thought it was gonna be. Fell in love with it, and I'm hooked, and I've been here ever since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know you've lived in so many different places. What has it been like being immersed in so many different cultures, and how have those experiences kind of shaped your perspective on diversity?
So when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate the experience. I think it just wasn't fun moving all around. As I got older, though, I really started to have an appreciation for it, because I kind of started to notice how people who maybe didn't have that same exposure just kind of became a little pigeonholed, maybe, or, areas were set in ways of thinking, let's just say, that I traveled through. And that kind of became noticeable. And a lot of them were similar and a lot of them were different, but a lot of them were very stuck in their ways. And as I kind of got to go through those, I got to see that play out and have a real appreciation for that, I think.
Yeah. That's it's something that we call confirmation bias, where everybody around me that I know that's in my circle thinks like I do. So I think everybody thinks like that. I think the whole world is like this, right?
Definitely. But there's pockets, there's just so different. It's like we have so many planets right here in one, traveling to different areas, it can be that different sometimes, the culture. But then there's some threads of commonalities that you see, for sure.
Yeah. We see that all over the place. I mean, I come from the deep South. I'm from Georgia. Where did you live in Georgia when you lived in Georgia?
I lived in Richmond Hill, Georgia, just south of Savannah.
Okay. I've never been there. I've never even heard of it. That's
small.
Yeah. I'm from small Georgia too. I'm from a town called Barnesville.
Okay.
That's nowhere.
I haven't heard of Barnesville.
Yeah, it's if you looked at a map of Georgia, it's the exact center, the geographical center, like halfway between Macon and Atlanta. But in my town, everybody thinks the same way, right? Everybody
Right.
goes to the same. That we have many churches, but they're all the same denomination, right?
Oh,
Very slightly differing flavors of the
am I
same.
allowed to say that's unfortunate?
It is a little unfortunate. Diversity
Yeah.
makes the world go round. It's important for people to have different perspectives and the ability to find something different, right? Like I had never met until people. I mean, when people I talk about religiously sheltered, I didn't meet a Jewish person or even a Catholic until I went to college. So
Oh, wow.
I had never experienced that, right? We had in my high school one Hispanic person, and she was half Hispanic, half Native American, and I didn't really know her.
So she wasn't even a full Hispanic.
Right, yeah. Like I don't. So I had, my experience was I was, surrounded by white culture, black culture, Baptist culture. Full stop. That's it.
Right.
The whole list.
And importantly, by Southern Georgia white culture and Southern Georgia black culture.
Yeah,
And,
right. And those
you know,
specific types.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
That's so
interesting.
interesting. And at the same time, though, I can see places that have been untouched by a lot of different, where they've been allowed to, let's say, marinate or develop in their ways of thinking. And there's a lot of beautiful things that come out of that too. When people are left alone, like I've seen the influence that sometimes coming in and adding a bunch of improvements doesn't really help.
Yeah,
And maybe it something we didn't understand, but it wasn't broken and it was quite beautiful. And maybe we should have not put all of our diversity over there. It was kind of in its own, it had its own little ecosystem. It's doing good. you know
yeah, yeah,
um
yeah. And there absolutely is beauty in preserved culture, right? I think particularly when we're talking about the topic of this episode, island culture, right? That's a way that they've been able to keep, despite having a relatively small population, able to keep a cultural identity is through that sort of separation, the keeping of the purity of the island culture. Um,
right.
so why don't let's talk about what are some like unique aspects of island culture compared to mainland culture, particularly in terms of how like close knit the community feels. And when we talked before, you gave this idea that everyone seems like they're related to the whole island. Can we talk a little more about that?
Yeah, I mean, and it's probably very similar when you come from a small town. you know um I mean, there's only so many people in the breeding pool. And after a while, it's just one big melting pot. um, and so everybody just kind of, after a while, everybody is related. But, from a cultural perspective, um, I think one of those, talking about how it was left alone and allowed to develop, because of that, our at least for our island, I can't speak for all islands. I've noticed a lot of similarities, but I noticed for the island that I'm from and some of the surrounding areas, they really had a clan mentality, you
Mm.
know, and so you didn't raise your own children. The children kind of were raised by everybody, you know, and you might have even not raised your child in your house. They might have been sent to go live with an elder, to help take care of that person. And they were kept in the family. So uh, there's a lot of ways that, and you might have been sent to another village, and adopted to another village far away from your family, to help over there. And I think maybe as a way to help kind of spread those seeds around, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all joining in one place. But then after a while, everybody really is just related to everybody if you go far enough down the line. Um, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel that. I mean, growing up, like the product of two of the largest families in my small town, which is, everybody was
Yeah.
always like, you got to be careful who you date, right?
Yes.
And luckily, I then, came to the realization at 8 years old when my mom accidentally told me that I was adopted.
Oops.
that that I didn't have to be so careful. Also, fully gay. So
Yeah.
no chance of inbreeding, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's interesting this adoption story that you talk about. I come from a place where I was in a closed adoption. So what that means for people that are listening that don't understand that is that the records were sealed and my birth certificate was altered so that it appeared that my adopted parents were my natural parents.
Oh, wow.
And those records were sealed until I was 18, and then I had the right to go and ask the state if my parents had changed their mind and would be interested in meeting me.
Wow.
And a few days, this is true story, a few days before my 18th birthday, that law was changed to 21. So I was all hyped up for my 18th birthday, and then it didn't
Is that
happen.
a state law? Is
It
that
is.
a
That's a
I would have
state
been like, do I
regulation.
need to move? Like what?
Yeah. There's a state regulation.
Oh
So then I wasn't
man.
able to find out until I was 21. And by the time I was 21, your mind changes so often
Yeah,
about that thing.
for
Do
sure.
I want to meet these people? The very, very little information I had from my biological parents, or my adopted parents, I should say, was that I I shouldn't look, that I wouldn't like what I found, and that's all they
Mm.
really tell me. Uh,
Yeah.
so it was a tough thing. It was many
Well, of
many
course,
years
that
later.
probably only made you more curious.
It did make me more curious, and I come from a place where I am it wouldn't be possible for me to be more different than my adopted parents, right?
Yeah.
We're very, very different. We look different. We act different. We are very different. It couldn't be
Right.
the only way it can be more different is if I was a different race, right?
Yeah.
But I always had this thought that eventually I'm going to find my people that look like me and sound like me and act like me, and everything is going to make sense, right? So when many years later I did eventually find my biological mom and her side of the family, and I didn't feel that, right?
Yeah.
It kind of like all came crashing down. Like I built this up in my head every day of my life since I was 8 years old, that eventually I was going to find somebody that was just like me, acts like me. I thought I was going to find somebody that was a Broadway baby that was like.
I was just saying, as fabulous as you are, darling, why would you want that? You're one of a kind.
Yeah. So, it really led me to embrace my individuality, and the fact that because of nature versus nurture, however where you want to put it, I turned out to be something that's different.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And now that's part of my
That's better
family.
than okay. Diversity is a beautiful thing. That's what colors life.
It's true. Yeah. But I say all of this to tie back into what you said about island culture and the sort of very real interpretation of it takes a village, right? To raise a child, and how different my life would have been if I would have known, you know.
Yeah.
And in my case, not necessarily better, but
Right.
it sounds like from the island side, this is something that's done for the benefit of everybody. And that's really beautiful to be able to grow up and be part of a big family that all needs you, you know?
I mean, it sounds really beautiful. I personally did not grow up that way. I was because I kind of came and went,
Mhm.
being from different places, I kind of got to glimpse at it often. but I very much get what you are saying about not belonging anywhere. You know, because I was from so many different places, I didn't quite fit anywhere that I went. And I got to see what was going on there, but I wasn't really a part of it, you know. Um, at least not from my perspective. Maybe that was just a I don't know how true or untrue that is now, as an adult, to be honest. But
And I think, you and I can relate on that point of it's always we talk about coming from these insulated communities, but both of us are people who left the nest,
yeah,
and that's
for sure. And did not seem to belong in any nest that we were in.
That's it. Correct. Yes, I haven't.
For sure.
Yeah, I haven't. I've yet to find the community where I feel this is it. Although I will say, where I am now in Danville, Illinois, my husband and I are on the board for a group called LGBTQ Plus of Danville, Illinois, where we're trying to create some LGBTQ resources in a community that doesn't have any.
How exciting. Have you reached out to sister cities? Like maybe, I know Austin has a huge LGBT community, and try to get them to pull resources to help y'all out.
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, maybe we could find a sister city.
I know it's a very supportive group. Every time I've gone to an event, they're just so welcoming and supporting, of everybody really, especially each other, that I bet if you tried that, you'd get a lot of support for, I think.
Yeah, we're in the early days of this thing. We've still got to get our LLC and our 501c3 figured out so that we can start taking donations and that kind of thing, and then utilizing them in the community. What we're really doing at the moment is trying to spotlight community members so that they can feel recognized.
Yeah.
And so that we can get to know each other. And then we're going to slowly move into having like a monthly meetup so that people can actually get to know each other. And we live in a pocket community, really. We live in a blue state, but in a very red city. And in those types of cities, this isn't a political podcast. I'm just making a statement of fact here. In those small rural voting red communities, the queer community really does hide into the woodwork. So
that's unfortunate.
We're trying to get the folks to come out, and we can still have a sense of community here, right?
To feel comfortable coming out from the shadows.
You can come out from the shadows. Yeah, come out more wherever you are. That's Harvey Milk said that in one of his famous stump speeches. Come out wherever you are. We're here. We're here to support you, and we don't have to live in secret. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I've only seen in recent years in the island side that it start to become kind of okay, for it to start to be a little bit more normalized, and I have this famous, I guess now my auntie, used to be my uncle, that's a singer in Palau. And so I got to grow up kind of watching a little bit of that, it's very interesting how that plays out all over the world. And then you've got places where it's completely normalized. It's not a thing, but it's beautiful. Maybe your community is this CultureCast, the misfits, the ones that don't necessarily fit anywhere. And that's okay, because those are the trendsetters. Those are the shaker uppers.
That's it exactly.
I know I've been told, and it was not meant as a compliment at the time, but I've definitely learned to take it as a compliment, that I was a nonconformist. And so
I'd wear that badge of honor.
I just did not fit in, and I just wasn't going to fit in wherever. And so I just kind of stopped trying,
I mean, and really, to me, this might be an extreme view, but I see conformity as a dirty word. Like, conform to me means...
I do now.
Yeah, conform to me means like be like us or else. I don't like
Yeah,
that. I'm gonna be me.
right. Well, you know what I've noticed something about everywhere that I've been is that everywhere you go, there are systems in place designed to look like they're helping you, but they're actually controlling you.
That's it.
You know, whether it's your family, your religious circles, your government, your group of friends, you know,
Mhm.
they look like some, you know, if they're not the right friends or they're not the one, that family that you've built for yourself, you know, there's so you got to break out of those systems. You know, you don't want to
Yeah.
conform to those systems that are trying to control you. And that's one of the things that I love about EXP. Um, you know, is that only one time ever have I encountered somebody who gave me uh, an answer in this business that I can recall where I was like, well, that was kind of closed-minded, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was not the answer
Yeah.
I was expecting, and then I just thought I'm gonna wash that off and I'll go ask somebody else. They're
Yeah.
just new to our
Right.
culture or something.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's honestly, that's my experience at EXP too, is typically the people who are willing to answer your questions are open-minded people, you know?
Yeah,
I think that's it's a great part of our culture that we really try and cultivate. Uh,
yeah,
and we've got all of our one EXP resource groups that people can get involved with. So there's so many different communities you can get involved with and learn from, and communities that may not line up with your identity, but communities that you want to learn more about. And they're so welcoming and they're so good at that stuff. I think, a couple call outs I would make: the Black EXP network is really, really good at that stuff, as well as the seniors network is excellent at that stuff. If anybody ever has a question about real estate, the first place I'd tell them to go ask is the seniors network. And if they don't get an answer from the seniors network, uh, there might be an eclipse or the world might be ending. But if that's the case, then you go ask the Young Professionals Network, right? They're always also there
because
to
they'll
answer.
find it on the computer for you somewhere.
Yeah, right. There's so many members, and it seems like there's somebody there waiting.
Yeah,
Who's got a question? Let me answer it. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
that's
It's
nice.
fantastic. So I want to, moving back over to island culture. I know there's two big things that have had such an impact on island life, and those would be the COVID-19 pandemic and the insanity of our weather patterns that have been affected by climate change. How have those things affected the mindset in the islands?
Um, so climate change, I'll address that one first because that one is interesting. Before the world started talking about climate change, my grandma would notice things and she would tell me stuff like the fruit trees are changing their patterns.
Hmm.
They're not giving the fruits at the right time, or they're not giving as many as they used to. They're starting to get confused, you know. And the animals are starting to get confused, you know, like my grandma would notice this and tell me this kind of stuff. And then I started hearing about climate change, you know. So you've got islands out there that are dealing with rising waters and they're
Hmm.
having to leave and go find other places.
Hmm.
Um, you've got, you know, just a lot of issues. And islands can have droughts too, believe it or not, you know, because if you don't get the right amount of rainwater, you know, everything is salty, nothing
Yeah,
can
right.
live, right? So uh, things are changing, or you know, I'm fortunate to come from somewhere that has a very, very biodiverse, you know, sea life.
Hmm.
We're usually number one. We have a double reef barrier system. I could go
Hmm.
on and on. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But over the years, I've watched it die. You
Hmm.
know, I know that I used to be able to go and see, drive down this road and look, and I would see all these corals, all these different colors, and it looks like you can just go touch it, but actually the water is like a magnifying glass. You can swim and swim and you won't reach it. It's just so clear and beautiful, and there's so many colors. And now it's still clear, but the colors are leaving. The colors are
Mm,
gone. The life is leaving. Um, and definitely that's something that's, I don't know about climate change, because there's patterns that happen naturally that I think people forget about.
right.
But just caring about our planet, just growing up, going back and forth every year and watching this just beautiful, full of life, full of colors I've never seen anywhere else, but that's what made me proud to be a Palauan. You
Mm,
know, there's this beauty of it. Um, and then to watch it die, and to watch it go away, and to watch it become harder to find. And that is something that is very near and dear to my heart. That I think, yeah, definitely you notice it. I think you notice it more having the experience I have of leaving and
yeah,
going back every year. So I wasn't just like that saying about the frog that sits in the boiling water and cooks because they don't notice, right? The water
right.
is getting hot. But when you go and you come back, you watch it, and that's definitely had a big impact on me and who I am, and shaped how I look at things, how I want to do my business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why, even though it's so difficult, I'm trying to learn all this technology so I can do better things environmentally,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not with all of my paper notes everywhere. So yeah, climate change definitely a big thing that I think affects small islands a lot more. Big storms come through when we're having issues, disrupt the island. That is a very, very big thing. COVID-19 came through. That was a very fascinating thing. It kind of made me realize islands are kind of like a petri dish for what goes on in the world, you
Hmm.
know? Um, and it, and a petri dish in that it has sometimes some of the most dramatic results. This
Right,
isn't what you see out there, but when you study it under a petri dish, you really see fast, like dramatic results.
right.
Um, and I think that with small islands, um, probably I'm gonna guess, but places that are not as economically, strong as the US, um, and small, they really, really struggled. You know, you've got, a situation where people are making about $3.50 an hour as the minimum wage, but the
Mhm.
gas is up to like $7 a gallon.
Oh my God.
And then you've got a tax just started to get imposed for all imports, which when you're on an island is basically everything.
Everything. Yeah.
You can't even grow that. I mean, you have a lot of varieties of things that grow there for fruits, but you don't get as many vegetables because of the salt,
Right.
water. And so you just the economy just really started to suffer, you
Mhm.
know. um, and it looked like more of those systems at play that I was talking about, right? Designed to help, but they just put more and more control on you. And I just feel like when COVID happened, I started to see that a lot more. And we were shut down from the world. We hadn't even allowed anybody in. There wasn't even any COVID on the island.
Mm.
So I mean, there was just a lot. There's so much interesting things that have happened and come out, since COVID, that it's a very unfortunate thing. We got to something's got to change.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't mean to sound so bleak, but things in small island nations and poor countries are really not doing so hot since the pandemic.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, we talk about diversity and inclusion in a way that we we've talked about this already on this episode about how beneficial it can be to immerse yourself in different cultures. And you've been immersed in a lot of different cultures. Can you give me a little bit of maybe some highlights of ways that uh, knowledge that you gained from being immersed in a culture that's different than your own has helped you in your career?
Has helped me in my career.
Yeah.
I, I think it's taught me to be a better listener and a better learner. I've learned that some of the most subtle, quiet things are the most powerful. You know, um, islanders oftentimes get looked at as not being very smart. You know, they don't finish school. They don't have the same education system, and so maybe sometimes, at least among other in our areas, right, that I've been to is what I've noticed, right? Um, but there's such a wealth of knowledge there, like nature knowledge, like spiritual knowledge, you know, and they're not going to tell you about it. And in fact, if you ask, they still might not tell you about it.
Right.
You know, but it's there, and you have to learn. You really have to learn to listen and to pay attention to be able to realize that it's there. You know, and I think kind of realizing that and then taking that back to different places that I've gone and other cultures that I've been around kind of gave me the skill of that. And so as I take that into my career, it helps me kind of be a better listener. Like, what are those subtle things that I need to look for here that are the nuggets that I have to take away? What is the root? It's helped develop me into a solution finder for sure. Like,
Yeah.
I always like names that have the word solution. I'm always looking for solutions to things, you know, and noticing that, okay, usually the best solutions are just the simplest. What's going to be super simple that's going to work for everybody, that's going to benefit, you know, even all the sentient beings, you know. That, you know, I'm a little kooky. I will talk to items, inanimate objects, like they have character, you know, they have
Oh
a
yeah. Yeah, I have
spirit.
not an inanimate object, but I have a full conversation with my cat every morning. So
You know, I will talk to my water, you know, I will talk to my environment. It Yeah, it's a little but you
listen,
know,
if that's what gets you there mentally to be able to
it
perform at the
does
level you
though.
perform at, yeah.
It does though, you know. I will feel way over my head and sometimes and not know what I'm doing. Sometimes I look at the stuff that I've done and I'm like, okay, I'm crazy. That was okay. That was a lot. That was cool. I was able to pull that off. You know, um, where was I going with that train of thought? um, but yeah, having that quietness, being able to listen to kind of the energy of the things around you, or just what your intuition is trying to say, or, you know, in a place where you feel very out of your depth, you know.
Yeah. And
um
honestly, what you're describing is meditation. A
yeah.
lot of people
Oh,
think
I'm
of
a big
meditation as
meditator.
sitting down cross-legged and and all that kind of stuff. No, giving yourself the space to listen to your intuition and listen to your body and all that kind of that's it, right?
Yeah. And I think that having those experiences, going to all the different places, taught me that, because that's really the only way you survive.
It's true.
Being thrown out of your element all the time, you know.
Yeah.
I think
So I
that's
want to ask
helped
you,
a lot.
how can people outside of island culture learn from the island way of life how to better promote DEI and that sort of thing? What can we learn? What should we learn from what you're telling us about island culture?
It's kind of uh, it's kind of difficult. Islanders don't have much of a very, I think it's just my limited perspective, okay? um have you ever heard, I'm gonna go a little left field for a second. Have you ever heard of something called the Compact of Free Association?
I have not.
This is an agreement that the US government has, okay, with I believe it's the Marshall Islands. There's like 3 islands, and Palau is one of them. And what it was is, when they had World War II, these islands played an instrumental part in the US winning the war, having a foothold over there on that side of the planet, where war was going on. And so they made this agreement to help us, right? And give us things like help us develop our ways. We were savages, we needed a government, we needed roads, we needed, education, and we needed all these kinds of things to develop us. Um, and with that agreement, they're able in a time of war to basically come over and just set up camp. You know, and over the course of that Compact of Free Association, they just kept giving us money and giving us resources and giving us things to improve us. And what I think it accomplished was teaching a mindset so that we don't have ownership over anything. We kind of always have our hand out at this point, is how I see it. Maybe not the best outlook, but we don't have owner mindsets, right? Ownership. When I got into real estate, there's so much I didn't understand. I don't come from a background of people who were taught to own things, like real estate. So if you want to help an islander or work with an islander, help them develop a mindset of ownership. Why should you think about your future? Why should you collect assets? Why is owning real estate good for you? Which I'm now no longer necessarily under the mindset that everybody needs to own real estate right away. Don't go buy a house right away. Probably not supposed to say that as a real estate agent. Grow a portfolio of assets first.
Okay.
Think about the future. Islanders are so accustomed to having everything handed, and you don't have to go hungry. A lot of times there's fish in the, there's always food around. There's always an abundance around until there isn't, right? Until you've gotten used to it being given to you and then it's not there anymore. Or you no longer want to live by the rules that you have to live by so that you can continue to receive it for free.
Yeah.
So I would say if you want to help an islander, teach them about the importance of ownership, teach them about assets, empower them to know what real estate can do for them. I mean, you should do that for anybody, but
yeah.
that's your
I think that's a very powerful lesson. Yeah.
They just don't have that mindset a lot of times. They will be the tenant that you get that rents your house forever. That's typically an islander,
Yeah.
That does not benefit or help them at all. If you want to help an islander, teach them why they need to own real estate and what it can do for them.
Right.
And what it can do for their families, their future generations.
Yeah, the financial value there. Yeah, that's an important point. Well, we always wrap up with one question, and I prepped you for this before. I hope you're ready for your answer.
Okay.
But we always ask folks, if someone approached you today and it was their first day at eXp Realty, what advice would you give them?
So my advice is probably eXp Realty has so many wonderful resources. It is really just a plethora of resources in there. And so whatever your thing is, think about, before you go diving in, think about what kind of agent do you want to be? What kind of business do you want to have? How do you want to run your business? And then after you've made up your own mind about things and decided what you want, then go dive in and see what tools and resources we have, because there is just so many things, and it helps to have some kind of a vision first. I don't know, because I started an accident. I didn't know what I was doing, but now I've realized if I had started with some kind of intentionality, or what, not just what do I want to get out of this, but what do I want to bring in this space? How do I want to serve? Who do I want to help the most, and how do I want to help them? Then eXp Realty has a wealth of resources to help you build that and accomplish that, and people who want to help you do that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. That's really what we stand for here is this sense of community, and we can always find our tribe here at eXp.
For sure.
All right, Emily. Well, it has been wonderful having you on, and
thank you. It's been wonderful to be here.
Yeah. If anybody wants to reach out to Emily, she's available on Workplace Chat. You can always reach out to me if you've got questions.
Yes.
If you've got an idea for a CultureCast episode, you can hit us up at DEI@exprealty.net. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of CultureCast. If you have time, please be sure to scan the QR code on screen now to leave us a review on Glassdoor.